I'd like to introduce Cheryl Benega now, who is going to tee up our panel discussion, which is going to enlighten us about the future landscape of female entrepreneurship. So take it away, Cheryl.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. I'm Cheryl Benega, and I'm a co-founder of FourthWave here in Sacramento. And I want to welcome everybody to our exciting panel discussion on the future landscape of women-led innovation and entrepreneurship, what we're all about here at FourthWave. Please put any questions that you may have for our panelists in the Q&A box. And in the second half of our panel, we'll get to some of your questions and hear from our panelists on those questions. Okay, I'm excited to introduce our panelists for tonight. We've got four amazing women with us who have a long history of impact and innovation in their work. First, I'd like to welcome Amy Purchase-Reed, who's been active as a tech investor and is the principal attorney with Carmel Law Group and a board member of FourthWave. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Cheryl. I am so happy to be here.
Great to have you. Next, I'd like to introduce Ashley Bittner. Ashley is the founding partner of Firework Ventures, and she is investing in human-centered future of work companies. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Okay, next, I would like to introduce Julia Burrows. Julia is the Senior Policy Advisor on Women's Issues for Mayor Steinberg in the city of Sacramento. She's been active in government and clean tech for a couple decades. Welcome, Julia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation to be here today.
All right. And our last panelist, Tirza Shirai, is founder and CEO of Blink Bar. Blink Bar is a collective of women who believe beauty is a feeling, not a look. Blink Bar exists to unapologetically uplift and empower women because self-love can change the world. Welcome, Tirza. All right, I think you were on mute.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here.
Okay, let's go. So you don't have to look too far to find women at the apex of innovation. We've all know about Jennifer Doudna, who pioneered the CRISPR technology out of UC Berkeley, Jocelyn Bell Burnell, who recently received the Breakthrough Prize for a discovery of pulsars. And in earlier days, women like Grace Hopper and Marie Curie, they all made outsized impacts to innovation. The preponderance of evidence shows that women can vastly improve innovation efforts. A wide-ranging study done by researchers at MIT and Carnegie Mellon sought to identify a general intelligence score for teams. They surveyed over 7,000 innovation teams across the globe. And they found consistently that teams that included women got better results. And they also concluded that the higher proportion of women in teams, the better the teams did on innovation. There is a great fact on research. And so with that, what I'd like to do is kick off our panel with a start off question. And I guess I'll start with Tirza. What do you see as unique about women-led innovation and company building?
I mean, so much. I think part of what's so exciting is we're getting to really discover that together. So I would say, one big thing that I've noticed is that women tend to under-promise and over-deliver. And so, I think that's something to really be proud of. And it's something that, investors who've had the fortune of investing in women have really started to talk about that, and it's become more well known. And I think our ability to balance things like motherhood and friendships and lead and balancing just like a work life in a way that's sustainable and long term.
Thanks. Great. Amy, what are your thoughts on what's unique about women-led innovation and company building?
Thank you, Cheryl. My reflection on this question is really going through the FourthWave process for the past several weeks, couple of months or so, is that we are in it right now. It's much like how Nancy started this talk. It's more like B, because we're in the ocean. It's now we're swimming, right? And then how do we deepen ourselves in that? How do we actually build that community? And what Tirza said is like, how can we be together to advance all this? And then there's one question that's already there. And then how do women balance all these things? I think a lot of that balance comes out with the community, because it was so inspiring and uplifting to see not the mentors, the responses by the founders just be incredibly uplifting, and to see my particular, who I was matched with, Camille Richmond, just to see that movement from the first day to basically the last day, just profound. And she indicated it checked the boxes as to why she applied. So I think there's just something special about when we come together and we're all pursuing that consciousness path, that we just make a tremendous impact, whether it's innovation in the kitchen, whether it's innovation with microgreens, whether it's innovation with the parking structures, we bring it. And I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So community, Amy talked about community, Julia Burrows. That's what you're all about, leading our community, the Sacramento community, to ensure that women's needs are met. How is our community unique in fostering women-led innovation?
Well, I think when I think about the Sacramento community, I think about the difference that women make. And there's a number of social science studies. When we have women CEOs and we have women that are on that power rung to the top, we're more partial to collaboration as women. We are consensus builders, and we're more inclusive. So if we have an innovation network, we're automatically including more of our community with that. We're more democratic, and we have a more hands-on leadership approach, which means we're mentoring all the way along as we go to build the community. I think we're more honest, actually. We're more likely to admit when we need financial help or there's an issue to solve, and to invite the community to problem solve with us. So this is really about power, actually. And the more power we have as CEOs building this network, the more influence we have to make change for the better.
Thank you. Power and influence, as well as being a little bit humble and willing to admit when we need help. I love that. I'm going to let Ashley, why don't you chime in on this discussion as an investor and an entrepreneur?
Oh, thank you. Some of the thoughts that came to mind for me, or more, thinking about the investing side is, there are so few women that are writing checks that are leading firms. It's something like less than 5% of founding partners of firms are women. And at least in my experience, having worked on a team where I was the only woman and now working with another woman investor, really seeing the difference in process, in sourcing, and who's getting invested in. Our portfolio, our CEOs are 50% women. So really seeing the impact of having more women in those kind of leadership roles and driving innovation. And it starts influencing who is actually getting access to funding and who can actually scale and help support more women around them. Again, from the investor perspective, we're investing in, or we have a very purposeful approach to diversity of thought, bringing more women up as junior investors, sourcing more women CEOs, and really providing CEOs with the supports they need to succeed. So I know we talked about conscious leadership. You mentioned it here, but I think a difference, at least from a firm perspective, is that we really emphasize coaching and culture and providing CEOs all the supports that they need to survive, rather than just the what's your top line? So how do you really take that more holistic approach and support a broader range of entrepreneurs to develop the entire ecosystem?
That's great. I love that, the holistic approach. And I think we're going to see the VC investors that take that approach are going to be the ones that have a sustainable portfolios for the long term. And I think you're doing fantastic work there. Well, we mentioned conscious leadership. You know, we do have a focus on conscious leadership here at FourthWave, and it's a term that's used, you know, pretty frequently. We are really about win for all culture. So a culture that your employees, your customers, your investors, your community, all are winners as your business thrives. So we work quite a bit on that. Let's talk a little bit more about, especially I'd like to hear from Tirza, how you think this type of conscious leadership is important in women-led innovation ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important in all. When I read that book, I remember it was such a pivotal moment for me to just realize that how important balance is. And I've said this a few times, just I really believe that having a business and being an entrepreneur and growing and evolving with that company is one of the greatest spiritual practices that you can have. If you're willing to look at your organization and the issues that are coming up and really say, that's a reflection of something that's going on for me, and really take ownership of that. I mean, I've grown. So I started my company just over 5 years ago, and I've grown. No one can ever take that growth away from me, right? The stock can go up and down, but that growth is mine, and no one can ever take it from me.
There you go. You've used it to grow your company, grow it sustainably.
Yeah.
In the practices.
Yeah. And I've messed up a lot along the way, but it's always allowed me to get, back on track and really check in with, what's most important, what are our values, what's our core. And I think just, aligning your team with that as well, and just seeing it as the target and realigning with it all the time, because you do get below the line and things happen. Absolutely. But I just always, it's my North Star.
Great. Amy, I know you're a fan of conscious leadership and are using it in your portfolio. Do you want to chime in on this one?
Thank you for the question. And I just say, without consciousness, I don't know how far a company can go. Honestly, I have been part of a couple of experiences where that did not exist at the level needed to be to hit the ball out of the park. And so just the pain around that for employees, for business development is tremendous. So again, appreciating FourthWave for bringing together this program with the incredible leaders and mentors. It just really confirmed that in me. It is essential. And considering the exigencies of the time, it's just a must-have ingredient.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, just to change it up a little bit, I'd like to hear. Let's go over to Julia. Who has been impactful to you as a female leader in your experience, and who has inspired you?
So I have two quick examples, and Cheryl, one I just added listening to your introduction about a couple of the entrepreneurs that, Nobel Prize. I don't think there's any greater reward for sacrifice over time. But today, if you've been watching the Twitter feed, Dolly Parton has been in the news. And most of us don't know, in addition to her incredible songwriting career, that she's quite the entrepreneur. She invested in one of the vaccines. We learned $1 million because she went to the emergency room at Vanderbilt. But besides that, she has given away 100 million books because she did not have books when she was younger. And she did a whole reading session at the Library of Congress. So you just never know where that inspiration is going to come from. And I think I'll just give an ode to Dolly Parton today. But the second one is when we were doing the prep session for this, there's a young woman legislator in Ohio. Her name is Amelia Sykes. She's an African-American, 32-year-old state member of the House of Representatives. And her father is actually a state senator. And every day when she would walk through the security line of this CHP, basically their state police would pull her aside because they wouldn't recognize her as a young state legislator. They would go through her purse, they would check her bag. And she finally started a hashtag called We Belong Here because she's a state legislator. She had the pin on every day as she's going through the security line and they still pulled her aside. And I think through conscious leadership, I think we just need to support all those women who are being brave and courageous, whether it's in the CEO boardroom, whether it's as a policymaker, as a young elected legislative leader, and give them our support, whether that's writing a check for a political campaign, writing a check to invest in a company, because it's through their faith and courage that we will make change that's sustainable for the next 100 years. We only got the right to vote, most of us, 100 years ago. And it's the only way we will make those changes to get from hashtag we belong here to hashtag we are here.
Awesome. Hashtag we are here.
You're here. It's just automatic.
Arrived. Yes.
We've arrived. Ashley, let's hear from you. What female leaders have inspired you?
Well, I was going to give two that are probably more a little bit personal, but I'll say them anyway. One is a GP named Jennifer Carlsen. She founded a fund called the Reach Fund. And then another one is my coach, one of my coaches, Diana Chapman, who I'll talk to, who's one of the founders of this conscious leadership group. First with Jennifer. So I did my very first internship in venture when I was in grad school, like many, many years ago. And then I moved out to the, joined a venture fund, I didn't have that in mind at the time. It wasn't something I'd been driving for. And so when I got out here, I was so shocked to find out that it was actually as skewed as it was in venture, both on the entrepreneur side and the GP side, just because I had been mentored by really strong women leaders in the space since my first exposure to it. So I didn't even realize it was unusual to be a woman in the role until I actually started working out here, and having those folks around me made it possible for us to, go out and found our own firm and have the experience and the, what's the right word, like courage, I guess, to actually go out and try to raise a new firm. And then coaching wise, I was going to say, my coach, who is one of the founders of CLG, is also one of the people that has helped me remove the barriers and obstacles, all the upper limiting I would do that would prevent me from going out and trying to found a fund. And it's been so central to how we work as a partnership. We use all these principles of CLG or conscious leadership to build a really strong, healthy partnership from the beginning, which is, if you know much about the venture community, is rare. And also how we work with our founders. And so it's been just a truly amazing experience to be able to, one, go found a firm, invest in more women. As I said, 50% of our CEOs are women. And then also be able to take these principles and do business differently within venture based on conscious leadership.
So being really important to have another woman who was in venture that could be a role model, and then a woman who was practicing the conscious leadership principles
Exactly.
As a role model. So role models are extremely important, and we're excited about this group of 13 here. They're all going into our community now as role models, and we just expect a multiplication of strong women leaders here in our region. One thing I'm going to shift just a little bit. Ashley was talking a lot about funding, and here at FourthWave, we try not to focus on the existing statistics. We really try to focus on our vision in the future, which is really a 50% of funding going to women founders. So funding is a key element in the ecosystem. Let's envision a world when 50% of funding goes to women founders. How will our world be different? And I'm going to punt that one over to Tirza.
It's a good one. It's a good one. How will our world be different? Oh man, I can't wait. So, one thing I would say is the way I think that women naturally have a relationship with nature and our planet, that I think that a lot of those dynamics will change, where it's not this parasitic relationship. There's really a reciprocity to our living on this planet and in this biosphere. I think that's huge. That alone is worth the price of admission. I also think that it will become, I have a son, he's 18 months old, and I'm very conscious of the way that I raise him, because I see there being much more of a balance in motherhood and in home life, which I so enjoy. I'm a woman who just so enjoys both of those tremendously. So I think that we as a society will get more balance, and our children as a result will have more balance of that, of those dynamics, whatever they look like in different households. So, yeah, I would say I'm very much looking forward to that. And I think, another thing, a statistic that I will, share is that over 73% of all of the buying power in this, country comes from women. And so what I've seen, because I have 99.9% women that work in my company and lead my company. And, we see, like, I've, only been in conversation with men, and we're an eyelash company. And so there's always this like hurdle. And in the beginning, no one would fund us. They're like, women are going to do what with their what? It doesn't make any sense. And, but yet women, we're the ones voting with our dollars. And I think the more, like, I always try, when I watch films, when I buy things, when I even buy wine, I have a girlfriend who has a winery. I always try to vote with my dollars, because I think that's where we take our power back, and men should want to know why we want to buy what we buy, what's behind that, right? I think, the beauty industry that I'm in, I think is one of the number one industries that we'll see a lot of change as women have 50% of the funding, because we'll really shape that narrative that's out there in the industry that will be empowering and uplifting for women.
There you go. There you go. We have the purchasing power, and we need to use it. Amy, jump in.
Oh, sure. I feel like women will be very, very conscious about reaching back to bring forward. Again, I go back to my wonderful mentee, Camille, with her fail-proof gardening in the home, basically, microgreens. She's looking at partnering with schools that will help our little ones, the children, learn to grow green things. So I think women are really very conscious about that, taking that legacy and bringing it forward, looking back and seeing how we can help, mentoring, all those things. And I just look for, my name should be community, because I'm so about community. And so about the health and well-being of community. And I think when we have that, everybody benefits. Everybody, everything moves forward. So that's what I dream.
All right, 50% funding. Ashley's making it happen for us. What's your vision when women are at 50% of the venture funding, and it's gonna happen in the next decade?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I loved your point around, we invest in companies that are entrepreneurs who are solving. We talk about like real problems, and we do think that a lot of the challenges we're facing, that we think women will take those on. The other thing that we see is, and we work with all of our founders, men and women, on this, but we do see women taking a different approach to how they're building their teams, how they're who's in leadership roles, how they're mentoring folks. Just today I was talking to a CEO who passed on a senior level candidate because the person was, rude to a junior person, and they did not want that as part of their culture. And that's not something that you see typically. I've been in board meetings now where culture, equity, diversity, inclusion, those are big parts of the conversation that's being driven, I think, by women and other people of color taking on these leadership roles in these companies. So I'm really excited for one, folks tackling these big challenges that we face, and two, creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment in startups for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we just have a few minutes left. We have a question from the audience, which is really around balance, and I think Tirza hit this a little bit. Maybe you can give a little more color on when you first started. How did you balance the hats that you wore as a startup entrepreneur?
Yeah, wow. Well, I would say early on in my career, I was really trying to just outmen the men. That was my tactic. And then I really started to, and I think it was just an inner insecurity in me that felt like I had to do that. And then I really started to embrace, and a lot of it through the conscious leadership, that, I as an individual, as a woman, have so much to bring to leadership, and we could talk all day about all the things that women bring. And one of them is that balance. So luckily for me, early on, I didn't do the balance. My son's only 18 months old. I started 5 years ago, but man, I remember being in the NICU. My son was in the NICU for 3 weeks when he was born. I adopted him. And so I was doing our morning huddles and monitors beeping in the background. But I think it was that I was also surrounded. A big part of it was I was surrounded by other mothers. And, it makes me emotional. It's like they were so supportive. They just had my back. They're like, you got this. Don't worry about it. And it was like, I was so grateful to be surrounded by other mothers who had been there before me. And it's just such a beautiful time in your life. And I think that the other thing that gets me is I also think early on I was trying to do everything, like multitask, and I'd be with my son, but I'd be doing an email. And especially this year, the gift that is COVID, I've really, really started to change that about myself. And when I'm with my son, I'm there, and all devices and everything are as off as they possibly can be. And I think that's it. If you can, however much time you can spend balancing that, especially as a mother, you just throw the guilt away and you just be present. Like that's what's been working for me lately, currently is what's working. It's just really, that's basically what I would say about balancing motherhood. Is just being, when you're at work, be at work. And when you're with your family, your children, your loved ones, be present there.
Yeah. Balance but be present where you're at and in the moment.
Yeah.
And let's not try to outman the men. Let's be who we are. Right. Yeah. All right. I love that. Okay. Well, we are going to wrap up, and thank you everyone for your comments, your participation, your support of FourthWave. Amy, Julia, Ashley, Tirza, thank you so much for being part of our panel tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the CEOs.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. So appreciate everyone's comments. Thank you to the panelists. That was just phenomenal. I'm going to be thinking about a lot of that discussion for quite a while. We're going to be following up in an email and include everyone's contact information. So if you missed anybody, fear not, we will get their websites and names and businesses to you. Please also check out fourthwave.io for more information about what we're up to. And of course, if there are any founders who are looking for support, please send them our way. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Bye.